All right, welcome back to the Beast Game Podcast. This is a review for Ready Player One. It's directed by Steven Spielberg, known for a lot of good movies, but not too many recently. The writers are Zach Penn, and it's based on a book by Ernest Cline by the same name. It stars Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cook, and Ben Mendelsohn. And the synopsis is, when the creator of the virtual reality world called the Oasis dies, he releases a video game in which he challenges all Oasis users to find his Easter eggs, which will give the finder his fortune. So it's set in a distant dystopian future. There were events that ruined the world. The movie begins with the lead character, Wade, explaining the Oasis. You have a headset, you create an avatar, and you immerse yourself in this video game fantasy world. People tend to lose themselves in the Oasis. Wade lives in Cleveland with his aunt. He has several friends that only exist in the Oasis, and he's never met them in the real world. He explains that the Oasis was started by a company called Gregarious Games, specifically James Holliday and Ogden Morrow. Holliday dies. He creates a special object in the Oasis that if you find it, you're the winner and you take control of the company. There's 3 hidden challenges. They get you keys. Those keys will get you the special object. People have been searching for years. They haven't found it, nor can they get past the first challenge. Also, another large company called Innovative Online Industries, IOI. They recruit all the best players to get the best items. The first challenge is a race. That's kind of where we'll stop. And Matt, what's your opinion on Ready Player One?
Well, it was a solid movie with sprinkles of naivete in it. Awesome cameos of certain video game characters, which I won't say because I don't want to spoil it. When I was watching this movie, I couldn't help but think of Avatar or Assassin's Creed based on the interaction between reality and the virtual world. There wasn't any holy crap moments that when I was watching it, but overall it was pretty solid and one of the better movies that have come out in the last few months.
So Keith, what did you think of Ready Player One?
Being someone who's a fan of the book, I had high expectations for it.
And I'd like to reiterate that Keith is the bookworm of the Beast Game Podcast.
Yes, it's probably one of my favorite novels out there. I recommend to anyone. Chock full of references to the 80s. So when I first heard about this, I wasn't sure even Spielberg would be able to get a hold of all the licenses that was referenced. And I was pleasantly surprised that he got enough in there that it captured a lot of what the book had.
Yeah, because the main character basically drives around in the DeLorean for at least part of the movie.
It almost feels like one of those movies that's for people who are steeped in that pop culture. But at the same time, it's pretty accessible. Cautiously optimistic. I was probably far more optimistic because it was Steven Spielberg. Interestingly enough, the only negative was that the movie was too Steven Spielberg. He ended up regressing back to the 90s and the 80s. It happened in Jurassic Park and it happened in Amistad. It was like, it'd be moments where you have a character who's not quite greater than what they seem, or they're about to do something amazing, and then he does something and you're kind of like, oh God, come on, man. You ain't got to keep egging it on. And on the other side of that, you can tell Spielberg wanted to make this movie for like a younger audience. Spielberg made this movie for a newer audience, for them to capture that investment. So for good or bad, I think that was a smart choice. However, I think he kind of did a slight disservice to the book because he didn't remain as true as he could to the original source material. So the choices they made actually fit. If I hadn't read the book, I probably would have had a lot more fun with the movie.
Let me ask you this. Was there anything that was a large plot point that did not make it into the movie?
So the way that IOI gets taken down, that portion of like they infiltrate IOI, that didn't happen the way in the book. Wade was a lot more cunning for a kid his age.
Okay.
He was a lot like the modern day internet savvy guys and kids are nowadays, where they're like hide behind a VPN and do whatever, and troll sites on their own, and they kind of just do their own thing, but they're paranoid to the point where they'll hide behind VPNs and massive stuff. So he was kind of like a one-man anonymous almost at some point, but he figured out a way of taking down IOI, and the way to do that, to get in there, was that he could get past that impenetrable force field that they had, was to do it from within. So he got himself caught. And there was a whole section in there where he worked for IOI for a period of time, much like Artemis was. And Artemis wasn't running some resistance group.
Yeah, I felt that point was too formulaic.
Completely formulaic. I'm doing something greater for myself. She wasn't about that. She wanted the thing. She wanted to do it, but she also wanted it. She had the same goal as Wade did. Ty Sheridan's character was, and that was to save it from IOI, and they were complete jerks. And they kind of vilified IOI and made it a faceless evil, but IOI was very much like how Comcast is. So it was clear that they over strong, but they're an ISP. Since the Oasis is the biggest commodity out there, IOI was number 2 because they had all the internet space.
All right.
That's why they were the biggest company out there. And if they had gotten their hands in control over the Oasis, they'd control it absolutely. And there was also a huge thing where they were controlling the economy based off it. All the economy was routed through the Oasis because natural resources weren't.
Because they try to address it in the movie that, hey, if you lose your coin in the game, you might go bankrupt in real life. But it's all just kind of exposition, and it never really shows it happening.
You don't really understand, you lose your stuff. But, you kind of in the movie, you're like, so? But in reality, it's that people invested their entire life into this game. Like, for instance, Wade didn't go to school. He went to school in the Oasis. And he got to the first key after school. He kind of figured out from a clue that he left the secret on the planet. It was called Ludus. That was a school planet. And he left this stuff there. And that's the most accessible way to get a start into there. And the movie also, I think it also suffers from someone other than Spielberg edited this movie. I think someone stepped in and kind of said, in order to make this work, you got to make this more of a popcorn film. There was a number of plot holes in it that aren't like how Spielberg would handle a movie plotline and stuff. Thinking back on it, I think it was a lot better. I definitely have to watch it again because there were a ton of Easter eggs kind of floating around that they were neat to see. The ending wasn't as grandiose as the book was, but at the same time, it was still pretty cool.
What I thought about this movie is that it reminded me a lot of 3 movies: Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Avatar, and The Matrix. Because it's the combination of all those 3 that is this movie. I mean, The Matrix is the computer-generated world. Same thing with Avatar, but when you watch Avatar, you are a different person. And then the contest portion of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that, hey, if you find the golden ticket, you are now the owner of the chocolate factory.
Fair assessment, I think.
I thought this movie was okay. It could have been better. I think maybe part of the problem is really Steven Spielberg. I mean, this movie isn't any different than any other teenage novel. That person is the chosen one. The chosen one is supposed to bring down the corrupt government or organization. And it's the same thing. But it just felt like it was missing something. It just felt a little bland. It was more style over substance. And then it got really serious too quickly. And then the love angle with Artemis was just kind of bland.
That felt so forced.
Yeah.
It was all right. I mean, again, it was very Spielberg. Like, it went from PG to PG-13 real quick, like that little dancing. And I was like, what the heck? That's inappropriate.
Floating in space.
Yeah, I'm just like that. All kinds of inappropriate. When it was done, it was all right. But other than that, it wasn't that bad and everything. So I thought she was fine.
Then there's this kind of tone issue. It got serious way too quickly. And maybe the last 30 minutes of the movie is like, oh, well, we got to bring down the government, basically, or bring down the IOI, whatever the company's called. And
IOI.
Yeah, so it causes that last act just to be longer than it needed to be. But the break into IOI, and that kind of reminded me of that Star Trek episode with Moriarty where they trapped him inside of the holodeck.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So it's kind of the same thing where Moriarty used the holodeck against the Enterprise, and then they wound up trapping him inside of a holodeck. Right.
He took enough, but I think they could have taken some of the bigger points. Like, for instance, you really didn't understand that company IOI and that guy, Mendelssohn's character, so Sorrento.
Yeah.
He was a complete jerk. And the biggest thing about him being a jerk was that they put that force field around the planet Doom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't just that. He was like in a book, they isolated the planet, but they did that around all the challenges.
What did you think of the cameos? You thought they were cleverly integrated?
Well, we're okay. The Halo Master Chiefs coming out towards the end, that was cool. But it was just too video game referencey.
But it was a video game movie.
I understand that. It just felt way too much that the dialogue is like, oh man, I'm going to get my coin and then buy this 100 level something another. And it's just kind of got a little boring that way. But man, again, it's not that I hate the movie. It just could have been a lot better. And I think maybe with a better director that kind of understood everything, that might have worked. I mean, the movie works probably just because Steven Spielberg directed it, but if someone else of a director that understood the source material and then understood gaming, maybe it might have worked a little bit better. So, I mean, again, I would say Jumanji.
I think Jumanji is probably better. The references to like video game stuff is a lot more clever.
Jumanji was awesome.
Yeah, that's a video game movie. But
do you think that was more on humor than the actual storyline?
Well, I mean, this movie kind of has humor. It tries to. But even something like that, with the humor in this movie, just doesn't work. So, Matt, what score would you give Ready Player One?
I'd give it a 6.5. I mean, it has its moments in the movie, but nothing that particularly stands out. Cameos were a welcome addition. Kind of reminds me of Marvel Easter eggs that you have to kind of actually look out for, and then you actually catch on. But 6.5, solid movie. There wasn't a lot of laughs in it compared to, let's say, movies like Jumanji that feels a little bit more polished, but I mean, again, solid movie.
Keith,
we'll give it a 6.5. Maybe watching a director's cut would enhance it
because the movie is kind of long. It's almost 2 hours, so
it's a decent length. And actually, it didn't lag. They kept the pacing pretty tight.
I would probably say when they go to that casino, that's where the slow period is.
Not gonna say I'm hating on it because it's not as good as the book or what I anticipated it was. I think it's a decent movie. It's a good Spielberg film. I think he did as good a job, honestly, with the material as most could do.
Well,
I can't think of anyone else who would have done a better job with it. Well, actually, take that back. I
would say the
director Matthew Vaughn probably could do a lot better job.
Yeah, because Kingsman 1 is somewhat of a video game movie.
Yeah.
So I think he would have gotten that down, and then whoever directed Jumanji.
Kind of take that back when I'm thinking about it. So
I would probably give it a 5.5, maybe a 6. It's really a 5.5. The movie is watchable. It is completely competent, but it's just a little corny at times. The writing isn't as good as it should be just because, again, it's trying to reference a whole bunch of video game stuff. Other aspects of the movie, like the love angle, the corrupt organization, all that stuff just gets a little cartoonish. And then, as we were saying, with something like Jumanji works just because that person understood a lot of stuff about gaming, but this is just a gaming movie with a lot of references. So, all right, that's the Beast Game Podcast.